So guys, who's just tuning in now, this is the illustrious Greg Gifford. You might know him from Local Search Tuesday video series or from the Semrush Academy. For his presentation today, he's going to share with us Google My Business tips to help you stand out in 2020 in local search. And of course, we're joined by Niki, Mosier, and Carrie Hill. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to be back.
Yeah, awesome. I know we're reporting from space, but I suppose just to maybe talk about locale, where are you reporting from, Greg?
I'm just outside of Dallas, Texas.
Awesome. And how about you, Niki? Somewhere in the Andromeda?
I'm in Colorado.
Colorado, awesome. How about you, Carrie?
I'm in Western Colorado, near Aspen.
Oh, right, nice. 2 Colorado people. That's awesome. I don't know, Coloradoans? Is that how one would say that?
Yes, that's correct. Coloradoans.
Excellent.
Coloradians, yeah, close enough.
Coloradans?
Coloradans, maybe that's right. I don't know.
Who knows?
I'm a Minnesotan. I have transplanted. I don't know.
We can still be friends, even though I transplanted from Wisconsin, Carrie.
You're a Packers fan, aren't you? This is a problem. I'm sorry.
All right,
I'm
guys.
joking. I hate football.
All right, guys. Before we get into it, I just want to remind everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the Semrush YouTube channel. And that's all for the plugs. Greg Gifford, if you would like to take us away with your excellent presentation, please.
I will take it away.
Sharing the screen.
And we can now see the screen. Yes.
Excellent. We can.
And I'm going to have to talk really fast because, this is the whole 5 hours of SEO thing. And I thought I had the whole 5 hours. So I've got a whole lot that I've got to cram into like 20 minutes here. So I hope you guys are ready. So we're going to do Nick Fury's Google My Business tips to help you stand out in 2020. We already mentioned the Local Search Tuesdays thing. It's a weekly video series. You guys should check it out. It's super awesome. I'll skip past that because, again, I got to go fast. But I speak at a ton of conferences. And for all of you that are watching this that haven't ever seen me speak at a conference before, I do a lot. I'm actually already scheduled. I've done 2 already this year, and I have 20 more on this schedule. So I see a lot of presentations, and I see a lot of sometimes not so great presenters, and they kind of stand there and they're really boring to watch, and they stand with their back kind of to the crowd, and they just read their own slides, and it's a white background with black Arial font, and it's just bullet point after bullet point after bullet point, and they're just reading their bullet points. And I firmly believe that bullet points kill kittens, and so this will be a kitten-safe presentation because you guys know what happens. Nick Fury actually found out what happens when you mess with the kitties, because you mess with the kitties, you're going to get hurt. So, again, those of you that haven't seen me before don't necessarily realize that I do the whole movie thing. I'm an absolute nut on movies. I have a full sleeve of movie portrait tattoos. I'm 20 hours away from finishing sleeving up my right leg with all tattoos from the Goonies. So I always like to combine my love of talking about SEO with my love of movies. So there's always a movie theme to my presentations. And so today we're doing Samuel L. Jackson movies. So we've got 60 references to Samuel L. Jackson movies. Usually I go back and I do 1 movie for every year in the last 50 years, but obviously he hasn't been doing that much acting. So instead I included at least 1 movie for every year that he has made a movie. So let's kick this off. I know a lot of you guys get really stressed out and confused when it comes to Google My Business and showing up in local searches, because a lot of times you're looking up at competitors that rank higher than you and you can't quite figure it out. And when you start looking at all the factors that are involved, it's really easy to lose your head. But today I'm going to help you guys break the chains of traditional thinking about Google My Business. And I'm going to show you guys how to really show up and grab attention. So your Google My Business listing is actually your new home page. It's the first impression that you make, because when someone does a brand search, it's going to show your Google My Business listing both on desktop and on mobile. So this is the first impression that you're making with people. It's no longer your website. So if you want to stand out and win customers, you've got to optimize your Google My Business listing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's also going to help you win with zero-click search. I'm actually talking at Brighton SEO about how Google My Business is a big factor in zero-click search that a lot of people aren't really talking about, because in local searches, when you're searching and you're seeing this Google My Business information, there's so much there, you almost don't have to go to a website anymore. So you want to make sure that you're really optimizing the heck out of everything. So you want to make sure, use your real business name. Don't stuff keywords. Stuffing keywords can get you in trouble. But a lot of competitors do it, because when you stuff those keywords, it kind of shows up pretty well. So if you're out there and you're in a vertical where you're fighting a lot of name spam in Google My Business, then you have to go in and suggest and edit. Click suggest and edit and put in the actual name. You have to report these individually. That's the only way that you can do that. You're basically training Google's algorithm to figure out what those business names are. But if you're fighting in a vertical that has people doing completely fake listings, maybe it's a service-based business and they're using their technicians' home addresses to set up offices, or they're using a Regis office and there's actually nobody there. Whenever you have completely fake listings, you can use Google's business redressal form. So you want to go in with this redressal form, and you can go to bit.ly/report-map-crap to get there, because it's a long URL. It's tough to get to. I made it a short URL, but you can go report those fake listings and get them pulled down. And you guys may not know this, but Samuel L. Jackson actually had a quote about fighting Google My Business map spam in one of his movies. People don't realize this, but he actually had a movie about local search. And here's the quote. Crazy, right? I mean, you guys probably didn't even realize it was in that movie. So you also have to make sure that your address is correct. And you want to make sure that when you're checking your address, you're also looking at the placement of your map pin and make sure the map pin is actually in the right spot. Now, a lot of people in the past would try to fake their address. They want to try to show up. And so they're going to fake an address and put in a suite number. Google's going to ignore those suite numbers. Google does not count the suite numbers when it's looking at the uniqueness of your address. But you want to include those suite numbers, because that's important for human users to be able to find where you're actually located. Now, I mentioned the Regis office a second ago. Those co-working spaces, those virtual office spaces have been so heavily abused in the past that Google basically just doesn't let you use them anymore. So if you're trying to cheat a location by just going and renting a cheap Regis office, it's not really going to show up well in Google search results. And unfortunately, if you actually are located in a co-working space or a Regis office, it's going to be a lot more difficult to prove that you actually have a legitimate business there, because Google is so heavily biased against that. Now, if you're a service area business where people don't come to you, but you go to people, like a plumber or an electrician, you want to leave the address field blank and then fill in the service areas. And Google just reduced the amount of service areas that you can put in. So you only have 20 slots that you can put in your service area. So you want to be strategic. You can mix the types. You can put cities and zip codes and things like that. You also need to be sure that you're listing a local phone number. That's a really big signal to Google that you're a legitimate local business. But they changed the rules, and you can now use tracking numbers. And you absolutely should use a tracking number on your Google My Business, because we're all marketers, and we want to take the credit for all of the additional phone calls that come in from those organic searches that show the Google My Business listing. So you want to put the tracking number in as the primary number, and then list your local number as an alternate number, so you still have consistency with all of your NAP. You also want to make sure you're picking the right categories. This is absolutely vital for showing up. A lot of times we've worked with businesses in the past and they're like, I don't understand why my competitor's kicking my butt on these searches. And you go in and look in the Google My Business and they don't even have the right categories chosen. So you want to make sure you're picking all of the categories that actually apply to the business that you are conducting. And keep in mind that the primary category choice carries more weight in the algorithm. So it's going to be more valuable for you to put the right thing in that primary slot. So be strategic. An example of this would be car dealerships have multiple categories that they choose. Now, if you're a Ford dealer and you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you could see there's a whole lot of Ford dealers. So you'd want to have the Ford dealer category as your primary category, because that's where you're really fighting. But if you're a Ford dealer in the middle of nowhere and there's not another Ford dealership for 50, 60, 100 miles in any direction, you're automatically going to show up number one for Ford dealer in all these towns. So you don't have to worry about it. And instead, you'd want to put used car dealer as your number one category, because that's where you're really going to be fighting for business against the other guys in town. So I've got a cool trick to share with you. If you want to see the categories that your competitors have chosen, it's really easy. You want to go in and do a search on Google Maps for your competitor, and then you want to right click on the top line info and select view source. So like this, up where it has their name and the review stars and that first category, right click, select view source, and then pay attention to what that category is, because then you want to control F and search for that primary category. Then you want to look for the third iteration. The first 2 times that category appears in the code, it's associated with reviews, but the third time it's going to have all of the other categories listed directly after it. So you can see there, you've got all of the other categories that that competitor has chosen. So it's a really cool trick to kind of get some insight into what they're doing. You want to make sure you're including UTM tracking on your website link, because a lot of the clicks on Google My Business, especially on mobile, are not attributed correctly in Google Analytics and sometimes will show up as direct traffic. So you want to add in UTM source equals GMB or GMB listing or something like that, and then leave medium as organic so it's still lumped in with organic. That way you can separate out the clicks that are coming from the regular 10 blue links or the clicks that are coming from your Google My Business, and fix the attribution problem in Google Analytics. Your description needs to be conversational. You don't want to stuff keywords. You want to make sure you're uploading lots of high quality professional photos. And pay attention when you're putting these photos up about how they're going to be cropped and displayed. So if you're putting these images up to show for your business, you want to think about how they're actually going to look when people are seeing them, because on desktop, the image is square. So look at this Southern France patisserie. It's not the best image because you're seeing half of each plate. But on mobile, it's a rectangular image. So on mobile, you look at it and you see, and it's a nice composition of the image. What they should have done is they should have composed the image differently so that one plate was centered, so it looks better in both spots. Now, you also can upload videos. So if you've got videos, definitely upload videos to your Google My Business as well. Reviews are incredibly important. They're obviously important for humans, but it's a big part of the algorithm. And a lot of times people shoot for a perfect score, but a lot of studies have been done to show the ideal score range is between 4.3 and 4.5, because it just doesn't look realistic to have a whole bunch of reviews and have them all be perfect reviews, because obviously there's some people out there that are grumpy and they're going to leave a bad review, and everybody drops the ball every once in a while, so it's not realistic. You want to make it easy for people to leave a review, and you need to ask every single customer to leave a review for you. You want to set up, we typically set up a reviews page at, domain.com/reviews. And that page is going to say, hey, thanks for doing business with us. Let us know how we did today. And then it's got a link to all of your various review sites so that they can go leave a review at the site that they choose. Now, when you're linking to Google, make sure that that link directly pops up the review box. Don't just link to your Google My Business or to a Google search of your business name, because they're going to have to figure out where to go. So you can use a direct link that will automatically pop up that box that lets them immediately put in a review. So if you've set up a short URL for your Google My Business, it would just be g.page/ whatever your short name is /review. Now, if you don't have the short URL set up, you can go to Whitespark. They've got a really cool review link generator tool. So whitespark.ca/google-review-link-generator will let you get that same link that pops up the reviews immediately. An important thing to realize, keywords in Google reviews will help you rank for those keywords. But unfortunately, you can't tell people what to write because it's against the terms of service and a lot of times against the law. But you can be like a Jedi mind trick guy and influence what people write by suggesting what makes a good review. So on that reviews page where you've got all the list of places they can go leave a review, say something like, hey, if you're not sure what to write, the best reviews offer specific details or helpful tips. So here's a few questions that might help. So in this case, did you buy a new car or a used car? Boom. Right there, that person's automatically going to say, I bought a new Ford or I bought a used Chevy or whatever. And what city did you live in? Well, I drove in from Dallas to buy at this dealership because it's a better price. So you can influence the keywords that show up by asking the right leading questions. Make sure you're answering every single review. It's vitally important because Google responds to each reviewer and lets them know when a business owner has responded. Make sure you're using Google Post. It's basically free advertising. If you guys haven't seen it, it's the little informational thumbnail and image that shows up down on the bottom of your Google My Business panel. When you click on it, it grays out the rest of the search results. You get the big image and all the text and a link through to the site. Posts should always be promotional. Social fluff doesn't work. And you've got to really be sure you're optimizing what's visible in that thumbnail image. That's the key to success. But cropping is really wonky. And even worse, the thumbnail size is different on desktop than it is on mobile. So it's really hard to control what's actually going to show in the thumbnail. So I've made a Google Post image guide, and I'm sharing the link with you there. It's bit.ly/post-image-guide. When you download that PSD that looks like this, anything in that white grid will not get cropped out. So you want to make sure that all the important elements, whether it's text or something in an image, are within the white grid. And then the full image shows up once they click on the post. Last thing here, we want to make sure you're paying attention to Google My Business questions and answers. It's a new community discussion feature. It is not a messaging feature. It allows anyone to ask a question and anyone can answer that question for you. So you've got to pay attention. And they have upvotes on the question. So if a question gets at least 3 upvotes, it will appear natively in your Google My Business panel instead of just showing the link to questions and answers. Like this one for the London Eye. It's upvoted enough that now it shows instead of the questions and answers. You see, do you have to wear a helmet? And you don't have to if you wish, but I believe Viking helmets are a popular choice. Now we laugh at that, but that's probably not what the Coca-Cola / London Eye big giant Ferris wheel wants for the first impression of their brand. Answers also work the same way. You can get multiple answers to a question, and the answer that has the most upvotes is the one that shows as the primary answer. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is you can load your own questions in. Ask your own questions. Set up a pre-site FAQ page. Remember, 0-click search. They're not going to your site anymore. And then monitor and keep your answers upvoted so that your answers always appear as the primary answers and you control the conversation. Now you guys know how to balance all of the signals for Google My Business visibility, and you can run out and pimp your Google My Business profiles. That was a whole lot really fast, and now it's time for me to have a drink before we all have to fade away. So that was the end. Thanks so much. And if you guys want to get the slides, you can just tweet at me there at Greg Gifford. And as a special bonus for anybody who got the slides, I got a list of all of the kick-ass Samuel L. Jackson movies there at the end. So boom, we did it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And we got heaps of questions from your awesome presentation. So just because we're time sensitive, I'm just going to jump straight into it, and I'll just open it up for the whole panel. So let's start off with Lauren Pearson. She asked, did a Google search for the company Fulton Fish Market, and I get a Google My Business result for Fulton Market in Chicago. Not the same. I am in Chicago. When a coworker who is in New York searches, the correct GMB shows up. Yeah, I think you should take that, Carrie.
Yeah, that's due to proximity. She has, in Chicago, has proximity to something, an entity, Fulton Market. So Google's thinking, well, you're in Chicago. You meant this Fulton Market. The person in New York does not have a proximity to that Chicago market or the Seattle market. And so is that Seattle? I think that's Seattle. Maybe not. No, that's Pikes. Anyway, so they're getting prominence, not proximity. So it really depends upon where you're searching for. Google's going to try and serve you the closest thing. And if there's not something close, then it's going to go to the most authoritative or prominent thing. But it doesn't always work that way. Like that algorithm, proximity, prominence, and authority. I can't remember what it is now because I forget all the time. But anyway, those shift. The importance of each one of those shifts based on what results come up, how competitive they are, where the searcher is searching from. There's a lot of factors. So it's not like always this, then always this, then always this. It moves around depending upon a lot of factors as you do a query.
So maybe a good takeaway from that is to look at the proximity in your Google My Business as to where you actually serve, like where that locale actually means.
So where is the Fulton Fish Market? I mean, I don't even know. Is that California? Is it? I got to Google it now.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't want to spend too much time because we've got a lot of really good questions. But
it is in New York.
Yeah.
So it is in New York. So that's proximity in both places. Because she's close to a Fulton, Google thinks they know what they mean, not that she knows what she means. And in New York, it's proximity because she's near it. It's right there. So, that's all about proximity in that case.
Awesome. All right. So the next question, Daniel Chung asked a really good question. Some services cannot actively ask for reviews, for example, psychologists. So do you have a good workaround for people like that? Who would like to take this one?
I don't know if my answer is 100% correct, but I can take a stab at it. I actually wasn't familiar with that. Some businesses can't ask for reviews. Obviously, you don't want to offer anything in response for getting a review, like a reward for it. But maybe even just like some signage in the office if you're in an industry where you're maybe not comfortable asking for reviews, or like adding that in like a follow-up email or something, just kind of mentioning that reviews are helpful, but kind of not necessarily outright asking for them if you're not comfortable doing that.
You can't solicit reviews, but you can say, "Hey, check out our reviews." That's not asking for a review.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you say, "Hey, look at our reviews," like the subliminal message there, your own, right? So there's different ways you can word it that get around their can't ask, but still give the opportunity to your customer client to leave a review without saying, "Hey, give me a review."
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe the psychologist one is just due to sensitivity of the patient-client kind of relationship, and it might come across as a little bit.
And in some states, lawyers can't ask either. It's like a state-by-state rule, I think.
That's
like
true.
some places don't have it and some places do, in the United States anyway.
And I know HIPAA, there's a lot of confusion sometimes about answering reviews and what you're allowed to say, because if someone, for example, says something about their child seeing a psychologist and the psychologist answers, then the psychologist is breaking HIPAA by saying that they're treating that minor. So I know there's a lot of things with psychology that I think it's just rules for psychologists are a little bit different than other verticals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. That's really, really great. So the next question we've got from Jonathan Hooker. Where do you click to review source to see competitive categories? I'm checking my client and I don't see what's displaying on the maps listing. I think that's more of like a...
So I can pull that slide back up and just share my screen. That would be the easiest places to just show.
Awesome.
So let me share screen.
Basically, if you just put your cursor in the middle of your GMB and right-click view source, right? Not on the map, on the GMB side, right?
So it's really wonky. The only safe way that we know that because we've had so many times that we told people to do this, the only way that I know for sure that 100% of the time it works is that you either do a search on Google Maps or you search for that Google My Business and then click the map that's in the top corner. Then it takes you to this screen here, and you have to do it in the blank area by their name and click view source. For some reason, if you click view source on the map, it doesn't always work. So you have to click, think of it like right there where the little pop-up is where I've clicked, the top left corner is where the map or where the mouse pointer was. So in that blank area, in that top line info where it's the name, the stars, and the primary category, that's where you need to click.
And sometimes it's those little things that are like, oh, well, how do I do that? If we can keep that up, because that's a really good segue to the next question. So we had a question that came in from Twitter asking about the drop pin that's on maps. So
is that sharing? There we go. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. So it's actually right there. So if you can see AA Land Diamonds Jewelers, I mean, we've got a nice clear red drop pin there versus maybe there might be a business that might be next to it or adjacent to it that doesn't show.
Sometimes, So a service area business, if you're hiding your address, sometimes you don't get a pin like that because you're technically don't have a location, right? You have an area. And if you've, set up your listing and then gone back and removed your address like you're supposed to if you're service area business, sometimes you'll get a pin. It depends upon, I think it depends upon how long you were set up as not a service area business, whether or not you keep that pin or it goes away when you change to a service area business. I think I've never not seen one show up. Even if you show your address, you should get a pin. The label on it might change depending upon authority, proximity. I mean, I've seen those change a lot. What other features are available depending upon your category, et cetera, et cetera.
I see. That's really, really great takeaway for anyone that's trying to do that. Okay, we're going to swing by the last question from Karen Benson. How can we know how often our businesses are seen in local search results if there are no click-throughs or only 2 maps?
So if you look on Google My Business Insights, or if you're using Data Studio and you have a Google My Business connector, you could pull that information into Data Studio and see it, but it will show you the search impressions for your business. And that's your Google My Business. So it's not necessarily going to show, whether you've got organic links for some other random thing, but you can at least see approximately, I mean, who knows if it's really realistic data or not, because there's a lot of question about that. But trending over time, you can see what sort of visibility you've got using that insights data.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd look at that as a trend because views numbers in insights are, like it counts. If you looked at the map that Greg just had up and those little restaurant map markers that were not the business we were looking at, but were the other map pin, us seeing that pin counts as a view for those businesses. Even though we didn't search that business, we weren't looking for those businesses. If you see the pin on the map with a label on it, it counts as a view for that business. So there's a lot of cases where views are going to be skewed and weird. I think you have to track your clicks through from your website link. You need to be tracking phone calls. If you're not doing some version of call tracking as part of your GMB zero click search strategy, you're really missing out on a big piece. I think you need to be proactive about it.
Awesome. One last question, which I might give to you, Niki. So what would you say would be the reason why the Q&A for your GMB just doesn't show up at all? Like, what would you do about that?
There's some industry or some business categories where Q&A just doesn't show up. So education, if you're like a school or something, some type of education category, with the exception of daycare centers, then you won't have Q&A showing up.
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen also not show up for advertising. Marketing agency gets Q&A. Agency does not get Q&A. It's very weird. Some categories work and some don't. If you run into that, just start switching your category, your primary,
and look at
see.
Yeah, and look at your competitors' categories too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really
because even if education center isn't your primary, like if it's a secondary category, it will suppress your Q&A. You have to take it out of there.
Yep, Carrie helped me with that one.
Awesome. I think that's a really, really great place to end it. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you after the fact? Carrie?
You can find me on Twitter at Carrie, and I work for Sterling Sky, sterlingsky.ca. You can find us all there.
Awesome. Niki?
You can find me on Twitter at Knickers85, and I work at 2 Octobers, and you can check us out as well.
Awesome. And of course, finally, thank you so much, Greg Gifford. That was an awesome presentation. And I'm sure a lot of people learned a lot. We had a huge amount of questions that came through. Where can people find you?
So you guys can find me on Twitter. It's just at Greg Gifford. You can also check out all the training videos I've done for the Semrush Academy. Olympia had asked a question about video for doing keyword research. They just released one like a month ago. So that's awesome. And you can go to searchlabdigital.com/blog and check out those weekly Local Search Tuesday videos that I do every Tuesday.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And of course, if you are reaching out to them on Twitter, please make sure to use the hashtag 5 hours of SEO so we can all see it and we can all jump in and help out with any questions or just have like really good fun banter. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. That's awesome.